Bam! And we are live.
We're here. It's
live.
happening.
It's happening now. All right, guys. I hope everyone is doing amazing tonight. Hope you're doing well as well. Hope the gods have been smiling on you. And we have Wren's Homestead here, Jack and Lindsay. And they actually just moved out east and they're setting up a new homestead. So we kind of wanted to talk about, they're at the stage where they really have a lot to do, a lot of priorities going on, trying to figure that stuff out. So we just wanted to chit chat about that. But do you guys kind of want to do a little brief kind of about you sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. So we, in the homesteading vein of things, we have been interested / homesteading for, I guess, 10 years now. That's when we started going down the rabbit hole. And man, is it ever a rabbit hole? Our first farm that we were on, I think we moved in 2013. So we were on that. We didn't own it. We purchased our first farm in 2016, right before the arrival of our daughter. And we were there for 5 years, and that was 8 acres. So that was our first proper homestead. And then we kind of accidentally, about exactly a year ago, found the listing for the perfect property for us, career-wise, land-wise, homestead-wise, literally everything was perfect. And we didn't really think about it. We were just like, okay, let's do this. So I don't know. I guess that's what we've done. Who are we? Maybe you should answer that one.
Oh, you're just giving me the easy one. Yeah, I think Lindsay and I have worked in a lot of different places. So how we kind of arrived at wanting to do this, I don't know if we got there at the same time or to the same degree at the same time, but interested in different topics. I've always been that way. I'm constantly on something. Research mode, and I just go intense with it. I'm sure there's a definition for that that a doctor could tell me, but there's
it is a diagnosis.
Yeah. There's several names. I think it's changed over the years what they call it, but there's a name.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking into something and going very intense on that topic. And the one thing that kind of tied it all together was the homesteading stuff. Like it kind of put a nice bow on the whole thing. All of it applies. There's not any hobby or topic or interest that's really outside of it. It just kind of pulls it all together. So for me, it just made sense. I'm not scatterbrained. I'm a homesteader.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, my desire was driven probably more from, I don't know, an anxiety standpoint, less than this is fun, all my interests are together. It was more like everything's terrible and I'm going to die, so I better do this. But either way, we went this direction. So
as Chris from Hickory Cross says, the impending doom.
Yes, the doom. The doom, which seemed for me, my impending doom started when I moved to an area that had people. I wasn't used to living around people, and it turns out I can't live around people. And then a lot of the impending doom goes away. So
I've always known I get stressed around in highly populated areas. And it's not just the driving, which I've done that and delivering Christmas trees in the 30-foot trucks and, downtown Toronto, and all that's horrible. But even just being there and sleeping there, you can just feel it, the energy. It's, I would guess maybe you get used to it, but
I don't.
I didn't dig it.
I'm not sure how. My brother's in Toronto. I don't know how he does it, but he kind of loves it because he can go from one restaurant to another restaurant and different stuff every night. But it would drive me bonkers.
Yeah, it's not the Chinese food restaurant. It's which one on which street.
Yeah. Like
we have a pub that we like, and that's enough for me. I'm like, is there a restaurant that I can drive to sometimes? That's great.
Yeah, how far to jalapeno poppers is really the only
deep fried pickles. That's fine.
One of my ultimate goals in life was I want to be able to walk outside any door in my house and go pee without anybody looking at me.
Good goal.
Or window.
It's a good.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, there we go.
I forget where I saw that someone had put their compost pile right outside their bedroom window so that they could pee on it. in the middle of the night. And permaculture in action. I don't know what.
Human manure the easy way.
Probably not great to have a compost pile right up near your foundation, but I don't know. Priorities, right? That's the theme of the day.
Exactly.
So, what's the first thing you do? I want to be able to pee out my window.
Bingo. I saw one that was in Australia where they built like an outhouse, but it was kind of a fence. So you go in to this walkway and it's like basically just midsection height. And he's got straw bales. So you walk in, no one sees you, and you pee on the straw bales, and then he uses those for mulch and compost. I'm like, I love that idea.
I have a hard time believing the straw absorbs enough.
I would.
Oh, yeah.
If it's outside of a bar, that's a lot of volume there.
If you're doing it, this was like his homestead. It wasn't.
Okay. So
it's a single man's urine.
All right. So a little bit on it, and then it dries out a bit, and it's I'm just picturing like a line of people peeing on this thing, and just picturing a river coming out of the bottom of that hay bale.
Yeah, it's like those troughs in the washroom. You're not sure if it's like the hand wash or the urinal. It's like,
Yeah, too fancy. Better pee in both, just to be careful.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh. So look at everyone that's come in here. T-Hand, 141, Lewis, Bake a Leg, Learning Curve Acres, Patrick, Prepper Chicken Texas. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're kind of just, getting to know one another right now and that sort of thing. Seems we've probably met in the past, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
We all kind of grew up in close area proximity, and we have similar interests in that. So it's great. Dee's Homestead RS, thank you guys for coming in. So with the new homestead you guys have, you guys have a lot to do, eh? A lot going on. How would you say you guys are prioritizing what you want to get done?
Well, we have to come at it from a two-pronged approach because we're also self-employed based out of the property. So we it's really tempting to go full bore into either direction, but we have to build both up together. But I mean, of course, if we're not making any money, then we're not building very much of anything. So it's kind of a juggling act, but it's a nice one because it's not like we're like, okay, today's an office day. We got to go drive in and do stuff. We can just be like, okay, we're going to drink our coffee in our pajamas and work on this thing instead of that thing. I mean, that makes it sound like we never get dressed for work, which isn't exactly true. I mean, there is some truth to it.
We rarely get dressed for work.
I mean,
me and Bridget were talking the other day and we're like, we need to get some like a little nicer looking pajamas to work in. Something,
logoed, branded pajamas.
Maybe if we got off work early, we could go to Walmart and not, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Walk the aisles.
I honestly do. I like going out in public when I look unapproachable that way because then I don't get approached. Fantastic. Unless I'm in Home Depot. That happens to me all the time. Like I'll be like in an aisle and people are like, where's this thing? And I'm like, well, first off, I don't work here. Second off, it's over here. And if you go up that aisle and then over there, it's there. So that's always awkward. But,
yeah,
if it's like steel toes and muddy pants, I'm happy.
We have a lot of weird things you're not going to see on other channels purely because of the dog training stuff we do.
Yeah.
So, and if you're looking at it from sustainability, the first thing you do is not, chucker. Chucker partridge is not the one thing you go and grab. But I
saw that and I was like, weird.
Aren't they cool? They're so cool. So that's the thing too. Like we've got these two things going at the same time. And a lot of people who are in this industry, if they're doing birds, they're not, I mean, a lot of people are doing it really well. I don't want to imply that they're not, but they're not necessarily doing it from a homesteading, permaculture, sustainability angle. So that's kind of like, if we have to keep, 400 birds and only 50 of them are for our actual homestead, why on earth would we raise the birds differently than the ones that we're going for the homestead? So in some ways things are more expensive or they're more difficult because of that angle. Because I mean, like a pheasant needs a very different enclosure than a chicken does, because pheasants are assholes and they like to escape and they can fly and they're big. And
it becomes very clear the difference between a domestic bird and a game bird.
Oh,
yes.
You can get kind of complacent around domestic birds. They're not constantly trying to escape or, you know, jump over your head. You have to be careful with doors because they'll fly out. And if that barn door is open, when they get out of that pen, they're flying full speed and they're out of there.
Yeah. And it's a little bit different. But that's kind of been, you know, trying to marry those things together. And I mean, we need to have fields for stuff and we need to have different areas. And I'm always like, well, I don't just want to have a field. I want to have like a food forest edge or a
silvopasture kind of thing going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, in some ways.
But for the hunting, we need like field. We can have some trees and we will add some, but like we need open area.
Yeah.
And it was funny because you guys were discussing the other night about, you know, you decided to do some stuff on one side of the house. And then it was like, oh, no, we're going to do it on the other side of the house. And like,
Yeah, we don't.
How do you guys try and figure that out? Like, what is your premise of thinking? So,
I think sometimes it comes down to what you can't do. Sometimes we determine where things are going based on what something can't be. So if we've got an area of the property that's far away, it's hard to see, it's not readily accessible. And we do have an area like that. I mean, that's not where we want to put some kind of livestock that we have to keep an eye on. That's where we want to put a parking lot that we don't have to look at all the time. So sometimes it's like the lack of something. It's the negative space you got to look at and be like, oh, okay, all right. And now we have an answer.
We also always want everything conveniently close to the house. So it's just like kind of like when I have my backpack and I'm packing it for hunting or something, I'm like, well, yeah, I want this. I want ready access to this. I
want to use this, and
everything ends up on the outside pockets.
There's nothing in the backpack.
Nothing in the middle.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I don't want to have to dig for that.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you need it, you can't dig. So like
you got to make some hard decisions, right? They can't. Not everything can be super easy to access, regardless of the size of the property, because you're still one single point, and you got to walk or get out to these other places somehow. So
that's just it. We want our cows where we can see them. We're getting the goats, so we want them where we can see them. Keep the chickens close, and it's like, okay, so we want the gardens close too. So it's like we can't put the gardens in the back, so we gotta.
Well, you got to think of your water. If you're toting water over to the garden, or if you can get a hose out there, or what you're going to do. But I know if you put the chickens in the wrong spot, you're going to be spending a lot of time and effort dealing with foxes or whatever else you have around. So it's a big difference just having them that little bit closer.
Yeah.
So you guys are coming at it like from the it really can't be there rather than it could be here kind of mindset, eh?
Yeah. And another thing, and I think we hit on it a little bit last night, but then when you told us the topic for this one tonight, I got really excited because something that I think a lot of people struggle with when it comes to plans or being mid-plan or any kind of prioritizing is that if they get so far into the plan, then you get stuck in the sunk cost. And you're like, well, I've spent 3 months working on this, but then you discover that there'd be a better way to do it. And it really sucks to tear it all down and change your plan when you're 3 months into whatever it is you're doing. But are you still going to regret it in 50 years? I guess is how we look at it sometimes. So we do spend a lot of time completely changing everything. We've already done it several times in lives this year. We've been like, our orchard's going here. And then our very next live, we're like, no, it's not. So...
See, Lindsay's making me all self-conscious. Right before this, she said, make sure that you look up at the camera. It's like it's on the top of the monitor. And if I'm doing this, she's like, well, you're going to make people uncomfortable if you're not looking at them. I'm like, okay, I don't want to make people uncomfortable.
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like staring at the comments, and I'm like, you can't even touch them. It's not your life.
I'm like, this is better for you?
Look at this.
Hey, Zombie Prepper, welcome. Glad you could join us. Oh, that's just it. I mean, you want to kind of look at each other, like what the other person's facial expressions, that kind of stuff. So if someone's making a joke, you actually get the joke because you see the facial expression, the sarcasm. You're trying to look at the comments. You want to try and look at the camera too to engage everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I got to put
Eyes on a
a
swivel.
phone up top by the camera so I can see a face right beside it, and I can look at that. But
yeah.
We'll put a stuffed animal up there.
But yeah, I know,
Exactly.
like we've looked into kind of the as far as where to put things and planning that out, because some things when you plop them there, it's hard to change. I mean, anything can be changed, but some
Yeah.
things you're making decisions that are going to last a long time. Outbuildings being one of them, potentially even a garden, although you can move gardens. But if you put a lot of work into raised beds and fencing and doing it a certain way, irrigation, you know, you've made some decisions that are hard to undo. So we've looked into the permaculture design and their approach to it, and it's you know, where are you going to be on a day-to-day basis, going from A to B? If you're going to go to the chickens and the chickens are over here, you're doing this pathway. So there's, you know, that's a convenient pathway to perhaps put some other stuff around. The hard thing is we got the barn, and it's like through the driveway to get to it, and we're not sticking anything else around it right away. So no matter what, we're still putting stuff outside. So it's not super helpful to say, oh, well, if you just put something out here, then there's this new pathway with all sorts of stuff. Like, yeah, it's the whole property. We can put stuff wherever. It's just going to get hard to decide.
Yeah.
Have you guys left anything bare or blank and kind of gone into it? Whereas, let me use this space for a few months, get used to it, and see if, you know, it is useful for something else, or, you know, this is how I always walk to the barn or walk to the back field. So I want to make sure this is kept clear, or this is, you know, we make a path there. Are there any habits you've gotten into around the homestead like that?
Yeah. So the first part of that question, we try not to do anything on a property the first year that we're there, which is obnoxiously difficult.
Everyone says that. Nobody does that.
Oh, it's
No,
terrible.
exactly.
You're just
No.
like, I want to
It's
start
impossible.
things, and then we're like, we don't know where the water goes. Like, oh my God, you know. So it's
And that's our challenge on this property. Everyone has their own challenges.
Yeah.
Ours is mainly that it's soggy.
Okay.
So there's benefits to that also, but like after a rain, it's going to be it
wet.
almost stays on a slope. It's going to be wet and pooling even on the slope, and it seems that it's kind of a soft, sloppy topsoil, and then like a hard pan clay underneath holding it up top. So,
which, all things considered, is not the worst kind of soil you could have. I
No,
appreciate
not at all.
there aren't huge limestone rocks in it, because we used to have to deal with that, and that was garbage.
well, you build up a raised bed, and then the roots can get down into that, but they can also be up a little drier. Like to me, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So
it's
one thought
definitely-
going through your head is, where do we put the pond, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, we have two. We do have two. But Jack wants to expand the one. I think that might be a little bit beyond what we can manage. But I mean,
Maybe
we'll
bring someone in for that. But
yeah, some jobs you should hire out. So that you don't wash out, 6 houses. But something that we do a lot when we're planning stuff is we kind of have this cycle, and it's a good thing we don't have a lot of people who can see us when we're on the property, because we probably look like complete weirdos. But we walk it, and we walk it, and we walk it, and we walk it, and we back and forth, and I'm pacing stuff out. And I mean, then we go inside and we go on, Google Maps or the Geo and B site, and we're measuring stuff and doing that, and then we're like, okay, let's go walk it again. And we're really big on sight lines, which is super extra, but we started getting into it at our last place because it was only 8 and a bit acres, and it was a square, and everyone in that whole area could see it because there was no trees. And we got kind of obsessed with our sight lines.
Well, it's a gardening,
this tiny property,
landscaping kind of landscape design principle, where your windows of your house, you don't put something in front of that and then cut it short, unless you have a very good reason for it. But like if you can have a sight line that just goes straight out from it, and you can see lots of stuff, and maybe something at the end pulls the eye out, it's just going to be a much happier looking view. I kind of think of each window, I'm like, as a picture frame, what do I want to see out of that every day? And then we got the time to kind of make it happen.
Nice.
Hopefully. I mean, that's the goal, right? You see all these things come to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, trees grow pretty slow, but
yes,
that's the good thing with, like you were mentioning, doing the food forests. When we started ours, the good thing is the the trees and stuff are small enough when we planted them that, okay, we'll give it a year or two and we can still move them somewhere
Yeah.
else. If we
Yep.
find that, that's not working out. One we did was like a black walnut, and then we found out it doesn't cohabitate well with apple trees. So like,
Yeah.
okay, so this year it has to come out and move somewhere else. So
Yeah. We have a couple walnuts in the front as well, which is actually a really nice place for them because we don't want a ton of things to grow there.
right.
We're considering doing like a big circle driveway because that's the other thing. We're trying to figure out how we're going to fit everything in. And I think the only way to do it is to artificially move where you would be walking.
Okay.
So we kind of like, we'd like to be able to do a circle when we do our chores. And right now we don't. We kind of go out and then around, back,
Yep.
back again.
Yes, and everywhere we're going to
So-
stick an outbuilding is going to change where we're at with the property too. Like we need more storage for the implements for the tractor. Half of them sit outside right now, so I want to build something for that.
Yes.
And other outbuildings, like we're going to have like a pigeon coop separate from the barn, most likely, and little by little adding those sorts of things. It may possibly a purpose-built training building at some point. And that's going to be fairly large, and it's going to have to go somewhere pretty convenient,
Right.
in the same place that we'd want everything else, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's this one spot on the property and it's got like a well and power, and it's really close to the house. And I guess there used to be a mini home there, and it's the prime location for like 9 different things. And we're like, but it's got the power and it's got the water.
Yeah.
So
see, I got the gears about calling it a trailer. In Ontario, they're just trailers. And then maybe at some point they started saying modular homes and kind of rebranding or whatever.
I like it.
We lived in a trailer for, what was it, a couple of years or something.
But it was a
fine
trailer.
with it.
That was not a mini home.
It
That
was
was
an
a trailer.
office trailer they put a shower in, but
Okay.
but yeah, it was for me. I'm not worried about any stigma tied to the word trailer, but here they're very careful. Like, oh, that is a miniature home. I'm like, okay, sorry.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like, ooh, touchy situations, touchy names. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, like, again, we were looking at possibly living in a yurt.
Yep.
I don't care what people live in. For me, it was always about the property, things you
Yeah.
do on it more than the house.
That's just it.
We almost bought an, or before we found that. Well, I guess we found this and then decided that it was too perfect, so it wasn't going to work out. And then our plan B was an organic farm, 2 zones higher than where we are now, that had like all the equipment and more land. And it was like a running like garden center.
Okay.
There was no house, so we were like, we'll figure something out. But that was going to be plan B. We were pretty excited about that. But
I think
I'm very happy.
the land is one of those things that people forget to look for and walk and stuff. I've seen a lot of social media where like people are, I want to get out, I want to homestead, I want to get away from the city and all that. And then the first thing they look at is the house. Well, it doesn't have enough bathrooms. It's got carpet in the bathroom, or it's got, who cares? That can all be fixed. What does the land look like? Is there enough property? Is there fencing already in place? Is there outbuildings? Is there barns? Is there irrigation to stuff? There's a lot of
And that's a cultural difference I think I've noticed out here. When we were looking in Ontario, it was always, oh, look at this house, but it'd be on 50 acres and you'd be like, where's the
no
barn?
pictures of the land.
Like, what,
just
like,
the house.
That's what I want.
Yes.
And then out here, they're just like, hey, it's a mini home. Look at this. And look, there's a sauna. And look, there's a thing out here. There's a this and a that. And like all the outbuildings. Like several times we saw listings that had more pictures of the inside of a shed
Yeah.
than it did the actual house. And I was like, these are my people. Like this
that's
is
just
what,
it.
Garage pictures more than like the the master bedroom and the bathroom and all that.
Like how often do you ever like the way someone else has decorated a house, like for yourself?
You don't. So
Never. I mean,
the house is, you're going to change the interior of it.
I mean,
And
we lucked out actually.
if you have to share a bathroom with the kids for a few years till you kick them out, so be it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's fine, And I mean, we looked out here with this too. Like it is designed in a very, in a way that we like. I was going down a bit of a rabbit hole at our last place. I started painting like all the walls black, which is bad because it was a very small house. So I was just like closing everything off, but I got super into it.
This house
this
has a bit
all
of an Anne of Green Gables thing going on here.
Nice.
So I figure we need to embrace it. It's a maritime kind of thing going on anyways. Get some more green shutters happening. Maybe even do the green gable on the side.
Beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
just embrace it.
Yeah, Jack's obsessed. He loves the
Nice.
maritime thing.
Just want to say hi to Bomber Steve. Thanks for coming in. Belly Acres, Digs Outdoors, Marky Mark, Remy, Dave Knight. I think I got everyone. If I missed anyone, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Look at all your comments.
Sorry, Remy's on a date night.
Remy's on a date night. What?
I thought you said Remy was on a date night, and he's on the live instead of.
Oh, maybe. I know he had to
This
clean
is-
the. I know he was talking about him having to clean the or he had to get off because he was in trouble for not cleaning the house or
Oh.
something like that. Or like, seriously, Remy, you need to look after your woman and start.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And going to your question about
right.
if we're doing any wait and see kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This year, it's partially because we can't possibly get a garden how we would want this year. We just don't have enough time. We got to beat
Right.
back sod, and that takes a period of time.
Well, we have 9 cord of wood where we want to put the garden. So we have to move that.
So we're doing something this year where we're already going to be breaking ground to put our orchard trees and things that we have ordered in. So we're going to plant our vegetables along that area, along in those strips, like beside the trees. And that's going to buy us this year to also make our garden for next year.
Nice.
And it'll also give us some time to see if our plan of where we want to put it is going to work. It's a semi-soggy kind of area. But again, with the raised beds, I'm thinking that it could be an advantage. Maybe you don't have to water these things. If it's mulched well and it's the proper height, whatever that means for this, how soggy it is underneath, maybe it can just, deal with itself for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's also down grade from the house. So we can do water storage off the house and gravity feed it down to the garden.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I mean, so it'd be like if our house had a normal town backyard, and then directly past that, there's a steep drop off. It spans probably 3 feet, and then that's where we want to put the garden. So it's just like a straight line down the fence.
Okay.
It's brilliant, and we can do it off both sides,
So
down. into
you
the
guys are
garden.
already talking about utilizing the existing land, the features, and that kind of to your advantage.
And that's the permaculture lens. I mean, anytime
Right.
we come up with some kind of idea, we're like, okay, how would you do this in the permaculture system? And we don't always land on the most permaculture-y ways to do things.
we like straight lines. Permaculture is not big on straight lines.
Yeah, I mean,
but there's advantages to straight lines. It makes my brain happy. And as far as
It's another diagnosis.
mechanizing things or getting the truck in between to harvest stuff, it's just convenient.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And Jack has this idea, I don't know. I drive the truck always, and then Jack will be like, we'll put the trees 12 feet apart and it'll be awesome. And then at our last place we did that, and the first pickup fit fine. The next pickup,
if you were in the row, it was fine, but it's getting in that was difficult.
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the
That's
trading
just
idea,
it.
we
You
have to
got to
discuss
kind of
that
plan for
sometimes.
am I going to get a future tractor? Am I going to get future equipment? Am I going to put a trailer on the truck that needs to get down this laneway? If I put the trees too close or too tight, am I going to be able to turn around? What else do I need to do in the future in this area that I don't I planted this tree and 2 years later I got to cut it down or move it or something like that. So
Yeah. Another thing actually that we've had to look at a little bit, and I talked about this a bit last night in our live, but so we're about 10 minutes away from the St. John River, and that is known to have some pretty serious flooding. And technically on our property, we do have some of that flooding, but it's down all the way at the lowest point in this little marshy area. But there is a spot in the field where I think if that got worse, it would definitely come up there. What we're looking is there's a whole willow forest just up the road from us, and right now it is entirely underwater, and it is a healthy forest. And we wanted to do a willow plantation for lots of reasons, but wood chips is one of them. And we're like, well, why don't we put that down where it could flood? Because that's the only thing that's not going to care.
Are you thinking like
You
the
know?
basket willows so you can sell the shoots?
Yeah, we've thought of that, and the living fences, and
Yeah.
there's tons of reasons to do willows. Like willows are really cool. And
I spent some time really looking for like a hybrid willow, and there's a
Okay.
few out there that are well known, and it's basically just for production. How
Yeah.
fast can this thing grow a straight piece, and you coppice it, and it just keeps popping back, and it's a speed thing, and I can't find them anywhere. And they're super easy to propagate. So if anyone has them, you cut off one little stalk and then you've got 20 plants.
Is that the acute willow?
No, it's a hybrid of several things.
Okay, because the acute willow is pretty good too.
Yes, and that's
we planted a bunch of basket willows, but our land is all sand, so it's always dry. It's just not suited for willows. So we're like, okay, maybe in 20 years we might be able to make one basket. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, and that's where it comes in sometimes too. I mean, like you got to look at the plans and be like, if everything went to hell, what is the only good thing that could happen out of this scenario or this location or whatever it is? So that's, I don't know. Sometimes I think we think about things backwards, but you have to sometimes, like, go into crisis mode in your brain and be like, all right, what would we do? Preparedness. It's preparedness.
Oh, exactly. That's just it. Yeah.
It's difficult to figure out some of these planting distances, and everything is based on those plans, and you put all those plants in, and it gets difficult because you could say, okay, well, it's maybe 16 feet, but you're trying to estimate how big these trees are going to get at below the 8-foot kind of mark, where you might think, oh, that's plenty of room when you put it in, but they're going to crowd to the middle. It might fill right in. Right. So you gotta, and you don't want to be constantly having to prune to keep it open either.
No, and that's just it.
Carefree and easy. So
I think for most of us, we want something where we don't have to look after it. It's, we will look after it, and we know we're going to have to at some point, but the less maintenance we have to do on something, so much the better. Just let it do what it does.
Yeah.
Well, there's only so many hours in the day. Like, yes, you could be cutting out, access pathways through trees every couple of weeks, but it'd be a lot better if you just planted them 4 feet farther.
It'd be nice if you just didn't have to. And I mean, we apply that to everything. And I think, we've got this in common with the chickens. I mean, if it's February and it's cold as shit and nobody wants to be outside, do we really want to be outside putting Vaseline on chickens' combs?
Right.
No. Yeah. So let's just get a breed that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
And then everything's great,
And we acquired some chickens that were here on the property when we bought it. And they have more of a comb to them. Yeah. And sure enough, even this mild winter that we had, they had a little bit of frostbite on their comb.
Oh, wow.
We just have not seen that, right?
No, exactly. Yeah.
And I understand, like, there's so many chickens out there, and it's easy to just want a couple of these and a couple of those. And for us, not going out and having to put Vaseline on a comb, it trumps that. And Lindsay's like, well, it's so boring, the white Chanticleers. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like you'll grow to like them. It's the contrast against the green grass. They look kind of cool. But,
so our Chanticleers, we've got the one rooster that's like pure white, and he'll produce a lot of white offspring. But we've got another one that's more partridge than, so it's like more of a partridge mix. So it's got all the fancy colors and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's really nice in that regard. So we're trying to get a bunch of his eggs done this year so we can sell those guys and keep more ones that aren't just plain white.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I get bored with the white.
Well, and
I like our individual birds, but
the white was a meat production type choice, right? They wanted that for just a cleaner looking carcass. But if you're eating yourself, it doesn't necessarily matter. Right?
It doesn't matter.
You can Cayuga duck, and you're going to see all those pin feathers, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. The other one we've looked at too is one our friend has south of the river is Icelandic, and they're like really neat.
Yeah. Well, they come in a lot of colors.
Yeah.
It's like every color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We like the Icelandic sheep, and we were already kind of sold on the Chanticleer chickens. We hadn't decided on a color, but then I discovered the Icelandic, and I'm like, no way, these are the coolest.
I know.
And it was the meat.
Super
It was the
cool.
meat thing that kept us away from the Icelandics.
because they're a little smaller.
as an
I guess.
as an
They are,
egg one, that's possibly where we would have landed. And then
Yeah.
meat, and then we're looking at Chanticleers, and it's either the white or the partridge. Although I think they have a buff now. I don't know if that's a real thing or they just mixed it with the buff Orpington. And
well,
Okay.
nothing's real at the beginning.
Well, that's true, but I don't know if they've been keeping up on it.
Yeah.
Or they just cross them and
I
start
mean, that's how
selling them, but-
breeds. Yeah,
But-
that's
Yeah,
how breeds are.
We have our one Chanticleer rooster, and the partridge one. They go in with our Rhode Island Reds,
Yeah.
as well, and we hatch those ones as well. So it's
Yeah, and it's said that the white ones, I mean, they're going to get eaten by hawks and things more often because they kind of can get picked out. What I've seen is that if you have a bunch of birds out and one of them is white, then maybe there's a higher chance. But like a chicken was going to die that day, is my thinking.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
yes, they chose the white one. But if you have all white ones, they'll pick one of them.
yeah.
So,
We
and then
haven't
it comes
seen
down to
that
having
at
a good
all.
rooster who will, scurry them away fast enough.
Yep. Yeah,
And we
exactly.
do. We've got a really good roo. He's awesome. His name is Gerald,
Nice
and he's a good boy.
of River
Rivia.
Rivia. That's
He is
it.
the butcher bird of Blaviken.
Yeah, it was like, Geralt the uncooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice,
He gets to stay.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
And then when we moved
Hey there,
here, we
honey
met,
badgers,
hi. We
honey
met somebody
badgers,
in,
and hickory croft.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There we
we
go.
said Chanticleer. We did not say squash. However, you
we
did
haven't hit
miss
Not
squash
yet.
yet.
No, we did say impending doom earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Geralt's good. Yeah, Geralt's good. Although we just realized the other day that we've never actually seen him mount a female.
Oh no,
We have 30
We don't sit
something
and
of
watch
his
them.
eggs.
We don't sit and watch them though.
So I don't. Maybe he's just really polite and he'd never do that in public. I don't know, but
has he done the little dance for them?
he does, and he's
Okay.
quite sweet, and he'll like give them treats and stuff. Like in all the ways, he seems like a really good rooster.
That's
but
a
then
good guy. Yeah.
we're like, we're 2 weeks into incubating these eggs, and we're like, does he know what he's doing? Like, is this gonna work?
It's not like the ducks where they're just banging left, right,
Oh
and
my
center.
god,
But
the ducks. Good god. Like we literally have a
It's
duck that
funny.
we're nursing back to health right now because one of the drakes like grabbed her eyeball when he was trying to breed her, and it's like, what? Why?
It's so funny with our roosters because they're like, both of them are great. Well, the partridge one isn't as great as the Chanticleer, but they'll show them the food and they'll do a little dance, and all of a sudden they'll grab them by the back of the head and yeah, baby. It's like, yeah, I was polite for a while, but yeah,
Yeah. I bought you dinner.
exactly. Eh?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
oh man.
it's a thing.
I'm a nice guy. Us nice guys finish last.
Oh god.
Oh.
Yeah. The pigeons are different. The pigeons are they like pair up, and then they're all dorky and cute together, and they'll like sit in the same nesting box together, and it's pretty cute.
Well, and that's another example of a homestead priority that we're going to land differently than other people because it's tied to our business. We're using the homing pigeons for the dog training, just because logistically it's nicer. You can reuse them. If you use a pheasant or a chucker, that thing's gone.
Yeah, it leaves.
It runs away.
Right.
And sometimes they survive.
The pigeon, you put it in a launcher and you shoot it up into the sky and it flies around a little bit and hangs out for an hour and then
it's
it
like
comes
sweet
back.
field trip.
Comes back.
And then
Nice.
they come back. But yeah, we're really fortunate to be able to do that. I know that a lot of people that's not, what
It tastes
can
good.
happen.
They taste good too, though.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Jack wants to get giant American homers that are like.
Yeah.
Well, for
It's
me,
a
it would
hefty bird.
tick both boxes. Right now, we've got they're used as homers. They're also used as a utility pigeon, so a meat pigeon. So it would home for us really well, and it's big enough that when you're doing squab and you're only keeping them for a short period of time, they will get big enough that it's worthwhile. And the numbers actually work pretty well.
Yeah, that's
I'm
something you're
amazed at how
mentioning,
many places around the world like pigeon is a regular thing.
Yeah, well, it's kind of instead of the chicken, it's
Right.
Whose live was that? We were talking about the anthropology of chickens being around people. I think that was Hickory Croft.
It might have been Hickory Croft.
Yeah. But yeah, I
If you
think
got
pigeon
into
does that.
anthropology, it was probably
Yeah. I get so excited about it, I'm like, well,
I-
if the world's ending, I might as well learn how worlds end. I don't
Yeah.
know, I get stoked about that.
Yeah,
I
the
just,
pigeon-
I'd love to be
pigeon's
able to
interesting.
like do a deep dive into Chris's brain and pick
Yeah,
out a
right.
whole bunch of that knowledge. It's like,
Just pull things
oh,
out.
yeah.
Yeah, but the pigeon's good. Actually, that is something worth mentioning though. Like if you're somewhere where you can't have chickens or you can't have different birds, the math on pigeons is amazing.
And a lot of times you're allowed. They haven't. They
Yeah,
don't, they don't
you're
put it in the
actually-
bylaws because they
Right.
don't think about pigeons.
You're allowed to do it. They're not super noisy. Frankly, I find pigeons to be quieter than most quail that I've come
Yeah,
in
they
contact with.
they purr, right?
They make their little pigeon noises, and I mean, whatever. And the math does work very well. Falcons, yes, Dave. Oh my goodness, I just saw that
I
comment.
like the numbers on pigeons,
That'd
at
be so
least
cool.
better than chickens, at least for confined chickens.
If
Okay.
you put that pigeon out, that pigeon's going to feed itself and then come back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is nice.
But I mean, even the squabs that you just kind of keep in and you raise them to a certain age and you butcher them. I don't know how it compares to rabbit. I like the numbers on rabbits too.
Rabbits
I
are
think it's
awesome.
only 3 or 4 weeks for the squab.
Yeah.
It's really fast.
Rabbits are nice. Rabbit meat. I may prefer it to chicken.
It's hard
if
to
I
tell
don't,
the
it's close.
difference. I think for if you were presented something cooked the same way, I think most people would be couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it would be it'd be hard for sure.
Yeah, we did the traditional Hassenpfeffer with the rabbit, and and the only thing I wish I had done is picked it off the bones and before, because it was just a pain in the butt to do it like in the meal. I should have made little rabbit nuggets and just put it in there, and I would have been happier.
Rabbit nugs.
Yeah, but no, it was good. The peppered hair and the little juniper berries and stuff.
So good.
Nice. We usually do our rabbit stuffed, so we'll do it the same as a turkey.
Yeah.
And basically, you take like a turkey stuffing, stuff the rabbit, tie it up, cook it the exact same way, and bam,
we're doing that.
It's
we are doing that. I mean, there's a rabbit in the freezer right now, but I don't think that's an eating rabbit, is it?
I mean, it could be an eating. It's a snowshoe hare, but it could be. We kept it for dog training.
Okay.
So the dog will chew that thing, tenderize it for us, I guess. But,
we have so many freezers, and most of them are just full of
they're
random
full of
things.
pigeons and woodcock and
coyote
chukar
heads,
and most of them for dog training stuff.
That's the thing is,
coyote
I
heads.
think
We had 2 coyote heads and pelts that we were going to deal with at our last place, and we never did. And then we decided to move, and we were like, okay, so we have to bring the cooler in the van with the dead stuff in it, so that we don't destroy it, because it can't go in the moving truck.
Yeah, they spent a year and a half in our freezer at our last place, and then we moved with them in the vehicle with us just to keep them in the freezer here.
I think anyone that like homesteads, hunts, traps, any of that, is like you've got more freezers than you have more freezers than most people, but you don't ever have enough freezers. And the stuff that you'll find in there is
very varied.
Yeah.
Pro tip though, if you have a freezer like that, if you put a coyote head beside the popsicles, then when you go in to get your third popsicle and the coyote is staring back at you and being like, "Are you serious right now? Like another one?" You typically go back for less popsicles. Let that happen.
Yeah, well,
I'm just like shouting in the freezer. I'm like, "What do you even want?" Like
another pro tip is
Dave.
if you want to save anything in your freezer, like you don't want anyone to get it, put your Highland cow pelt on top of it, because you're not getting underneath it. They're crazy heavy after you stick them in the freezer.
I bet. Yeah.
Well, and that's one thing is I didn't even consider, and now I'm thinking about it even for Icelandic sheep, is that you have your Highland cows, and hi there.
Say hi.
Nice to see you.
Have a good night, everybody. I'm gonna go for a bath and a cup of wine.
Nice.
Bye.
Is the skulls that you get out of your Highland cows, like how cool is that as a bonus?
So we just got our so it was last April that we harvested our first one, the bull, and we wanted to keep everything, so we kept the pelt, the hide, we got it tanned,
So,
We did the skull, so we've got to finish that off. It's been outside the last year. Basically, the bugs have been finishing it off.
yeah.
We've got the horns, so we want to polish them up, and then we'll basically glue them back on, and then get that mounted and put it up on the wall. But in future, we'll be using those hides, those skulls, that sort of thing, just as an extra income for the farm.
How much
They're
does
expensive.
$500, $1,000, something like that? How much do those go for?
I want to say the hide we could probably sell for anywhere from say 600 to 800.
Yeah.
The skull, I want to say maybe 250 to 500. I don't know. I'd have to check on the skull, but the
I
hide,
know
I'm
people
pretty
will do
accurate
like
on.
the carvings and the wood burning type stuff on the skull and turn that into $1,000 skull, right?
Well, and there's
Oh,
I was
exactly.
gonna say, there's a guy that I follow. He's an artist and he's based in Quebec. I'm not sure where though. And I'm gonna butcher his name because my French is terrible, but I believe it's Samuel Cote.
Okay.
And he does antler carvings.
Oh yeah.
And that was like the first thing I thought of with the skull. I'm like, man, that would be cool. If it was us, though, I feel like we would just get something done and then put it on the wall and be like, we're keeping it, keeping it forever. We
That's
like
just it. Yeah.
dead stuff decor is kind of our thing. I like
it
that
happens. It happens.
We got the nice white plank wood on the farmhouse, and everything's clean and nice. And then we'll just stick some taxidermy and some skulls and stuff up.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of stuff that's ready to go. Actually, right now, we have a weasel that we want to get done.
A weasel living in the pigeon coop.
Yeah, that's
Short-tailed
where
weasel.
our weasel decided that it was going to live. We're like, nope,
not
We
happening.
felt fairly bad about it because like there was baby pigeons on the ground level within the coop, and this weasel was there for at least a few days. And from what we can tell, did not kill one of them. So I have to guess that maybe there was just a lot of mice underneath. And eventually, if it got all the mice, it would come up top and get some pigeon. But it's a shame because like if you want to kill mice, like that's great. But it would be a massacre when it decides it's going for pigeons. So
and that's like we always we really try never to put anything down unless it's absolutely necessary. Especially when it comes to the wildlife, that's a huge thing. We used to have a fox at our last place that would come in and raise her babies in our culvert, and there was just an agreement. There was an understanding. She didn't mess with anything, and we left her alone. And then one day there was a dead chicken on the driveway, and it wasn't our chicken. And then she didn't come back the next day.
Yeah, so a neighbor up the road probably shot her,
having an issue, and
stealing the chickens.
But yeah, it kind of stuck with this weasel. But the way that weasels is it would have gone in, it would have killed all of the 30 pigeons, which are our only homers right now. So business and homestead, that would have been a really big blow because you can't just go buy new homers because they're going to home back to where they were born.
We have 50 homers right now that if they got out, they would fly back to Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Still at this point. So they can't go out. They have to breed, and the babies will put into our pen, and then they will home to us.
Okay.
So there's logistical challenges with these pigeons for the way that we're using them.
Yeah,
that's interesting because chickens, you throw them in a new spot for 5 days, and now that's their home.
Yeah.
And they're fine with it. But pigeons are a whole different thing.
And I saw, they assumed that the way that these homing pigeons were finding out how to get these, massive distances was something to do with the magnetic field. Like a lot of animals have some ability to, even foxes, I believe, even visually see the lines, and it helps them gauge distance and stuff. But I think what they found with the pigeons is that they were wrong about that, and it's not the magnetic field. And they did it by messing with their brain, and they turned off the part that would otherwise be able to figure that out. And they still found their way. And then what they did is they messed their nose up, and then they got lost. So they're doing it by smell somehow. It's the weirdest experiment. But I have to go back and really dive into that some more now that I have pigeons, because I saw this a long time ago. But yeah, it's pretty weird. I don't know how they're smelling their way to Nova Scotia, but
yeah.
So if anyone ever tries to sell you homing pigeons that will just automatically home to your house, no, that is a scam.
Good to know. Good to know.
We have a lot of white like pure white homing pigeons. And they're pretty nice because one thought we had was that we could rent them out for weddings as doves.
Okay,
and
yeah.
they can release them all majestic like, and they'll fly, and people will be feeling the love, and then they'll fly back to me, and I can sell them again. So
Nice.
that's and anything wedding related, I mean, you charge a lot of money for it. So
Oh, exactly.
that's a thought we've had. We just got to figure out what our max distance is that we can rent them out to, that they'll still make it back.
Right.
If you want to kind of, usually people will train them to go farther and farther distances, just to make sure that most of them, find their way back to you. And that's where the racing pigeon thing started, where they'll time them, and it becomes a big competition. And it's big in Asia because they don't have casinos. So what they do is they bet on these homing pigeons. They don't bet on them. That would be illegal. There's a prize money for being involved in the competition, right? So everyone's just like gambling, buying these pigeons and putting them into contests. And
well, that's the same as selling raw milk, right? We can't sell raw milk, but hey, it's great for dog food or cat food.
No, that's great.
You want the barn cats,
Yeah.
Northern Girl Hobbies, thanks for joining us. Harvey Black, thanks for joining us. Glad you guys came in. So you guys have full-time jobs as well, right? So how do you manage the full-time job with the homestead, with the priorities you have to get done on the homestead as well?
Well,
poorly is the answer.
Or really well. It depends on how you look at it. The issue is neither of us are particularly good at following, should I say, authority?
I have a very authority.
I mean, so we it was a constant thing when we were working outside of the house that we'd be like, oh, the boss is wrong, or there's a better way to do this, or yada yada, or I want to do this instead. And when we're self-employed, if it's a really nice day and we've got a bunch of office work to do, or we could go put in a fence, we're just like, let's go play outside. And the boss doesn't say, no, don't do that. And then we go do it. So out of necessity, we kind of balance based on weather, and we've had to prioritize them in a very similar way. So it's not like, okay, today's a business day. It'll be like, there are 3 very important things I have to get done with the business, and then 3 very important farm things. And they require the weather they require, or the time or the resources or whatever it is. And then you decide between them. So that's more how we do that. And we're still getting used to it. I mean, like, I've only been home now. You've been home for years, and I've only been home for the last 2. So it was in all the crazy, shutdown stuff in March.
Yeah.
I got sick inconveniently. And, because of the climate at the time, like, the job kind of disappeared, and then I had to go find another one. Then we had some family stuff go on. Like, it was just, I didn't ever end up going back to work somewhere. And then everyone they all got their pandemic puppies. And then 6 months into that, they were just like, help.
Yeah,
so we got really busy.
That was a big amount of demand that was added for dog trainers. Everyone got their COVID puppy, and they think, oh, I'm home. It's the perfect time to get a puppy.
Yeah. But then everyone went back to work.
Yeah, you change your routine drastically. Yeah. All of a sudden, you have to go back into the office. And these
the
dogs
problem
are
with those COVID
apart.
puppies that everyone got is, like ours, he's a basset hound, so he's a scent hound, but he's attached to us.
Yeah.
He starts to follow a scent, and then he comes back to us because he's like, I'm too far away from you guys.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is, it's not like your average basset hound or scent hound where they're like, they get a scent and they're gone. He's like, okay, I got a scent. I'm going. Is it okay? Are you guys coming with me?
Yeah.
He like, we haven't left the house for work, so he.
The hound stuff is interesting because they, more than other dogs perhaps, have been bred to not be working with you as directly. It's kind of like let the dogs out kind of thing, and they run rampant. And bred in a lot of facilities that they're basically kennel dogs, and then they let these dogs out. So I mean, they're still dogs, and they're still like attuned to people, and become really into all that and part of the family. But I think a lot of them, it's not the main thing they've been bred for. A lot of dogs, the jobs are very much like, we are doing this together. So it's interesting that your hound is really adopted that. And, you know,
Yeah,
He's
I'm
like,
not going
we're
without you.
together. We're together.
Yeah.
It's fine.
it's crazy because I think I mentioned to you guys, I used to manage a horse farm for 13 years, and we did a lot of fox hunting. And
cool.
seeing the dogs that did the fox hunting, it's like, you know, they can obey the commands, but once they're on the trail or on the scent, they know what to do and they're off on their own doing their thing.
Yeah,
Whereas, and then Bridget's brother, he actually does the tracking for wounded game. So he has the Saint Hubert, and basically they work with him on the leash or on the GPS collar to track the wounded game.
Yeah.
Whereas our Basset Hound, you know, they were bred for chasing rabbits and being loose and going after the rabbits. But he's like, no, bit of anxiety. I can't leave you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so actually, so if you were involved with the fox hunting, then you'd know. So we were only about 5 minutes away from the Toronto North York facility. We were
Which
like
one? The one in Aurora?
No,
Or the one in Richmond
one
Hill?
up near Creemore.
Oh,
So we
okay.
were right there. So we'd see them go
Yeah.
out and stuff, and it was cool. We did we went to a couple of their events in Creemore, so they'd have like the big parade and all the, you know, everyone would come down, and it was cool. That's where we used to be. But
Nice.
What was the other? Oh, the other part about the scheduling and the prioritizing is the one other thing I wanted to mention is the other side with all that. When you get super excited about your like side stuff, if you can call it side stuff with the homesteading and then the business, is we almost inevitably never schedule a day off. So we will hit points where we just like hit this wall and we're like, we have so much to do and it doesn't matter what the weather's doing, and we just have to take the day. Like literally shut off the phones, just take the day. It doesn't matter what day it is, as long as we don't have like a face-to-face engagement. We do find we have to like throw that out the window and just be like, no, we're gonna like eat food in bed and watch Netflix. And that's like all we're doing all day.
Yep.
Now, do you guys find that being on the homestead, you're able to shut your brain off when you're doing chores or projects or that sort of stuff? It's kind of like your release, or do you really need that breakfast in bed, let's cuddle or let's watch a movie kind of time?
Yeah.
Chores for me, don't do it. Chores is a job. I got to go out and feed and water everything, clean stuff out. To me, that is work. It's nicer than some. I've done worse work. You know, there's a lot worse. There's much worse work out there, but especially because it's your stuff, and there's the perks and benefits of being out there with your animals and stuff. But that's not a release or an enjoyment directly for me. For me, new stuff, building a pen, building a fence, outfitting something in a different way, creating something that I could do that all day. That's nice. What makes me happy. So.
For me, it's and it doesn't matter if it's the homestead or the business, or even like a project inside, as long as I am so busy that I can't think about anything else, then that's when I'm like, you know, in the zone and everything's great. And like that for me is kind of the chill time, which is funny because I mean, you end up working yourself to the bone sometimes because you're like, this is all I want to do. And I'm so excited about it. And I mean, you know, we've had that recently. We've just been on an absolute tear and just doing so many projects where we're getting way more done than we've ever probably accomplished while still sleeping. Because there have been some periods in our lives where we just have so much to do. We weren't even sleeping, but that's not fun. And we've also been filming everything and producing videos, and we have more going on. And it seems like the faster that I'm moving, the faster I can move. And I just feel better about all of it. And, you know, that part's really fun.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that I enjoyed about other jobs that I've worked to. I mean, like restaurants and retail and like, you know, farm stuff. When you're just so busy and you just have to go. And then all of a sudden it's like 6 o'clock and you're like, or whenever it is that you're done and you're like, okay.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Like,
time's up.
Works.
Yeah. Now it's funny because before we started the live, we were talking about some stuff and you kind of alluded to it before, but when you guys are doing projects, do you try and finish a project, or do you work on different projects and that sort of thing? And I think, we're kind of in the same mindset, is like one project can be done and worked on. You can move to another, weather dependent or project dependent, supply dependent, that kind of thing.
We used to only get 90% of something done ever. And that was kind of the normal thing, that it never really got finished, never got polished. It never quite, we had all the stuff for it. It just would never quite happen.
Enough to, if it was animals, enough to, get started,
function.
Or if it was an activity, we could be doing that activity, but there was more to do, and we knew there was. So.
Yeah, that used to be our norm. And we're finding now that we're getting a lot better at actually completing stuff, but it's definitely not a linear process. I mean,
Right.
It's like we are working outwards on all the projects kind of all at the same time. So, I mean, right now we've got our big wood project that we're working on, which is twofold. I mean, we're building the school wood thing, but we're also getting the wood away from where we want the garden. We're also working on the apple trees. We're getting them all pruned up, which leads to a new project, which is chipping all the apple branches.
And storing them to smoke some pork.
Which
nice. Early fall, smoke some pork or something.
You kind of need, we find that it almost becomes, and I don't want to say Tetris because that's the wrong thing, but it's like if you've got thing A and thing B and they both need to switch, but you can't do that until the other thing's done, which means you have to do like some random project over here. Like that's kind of how it ends up working, And often we get right down to the wire where we're like, oh shit, we have 2 hours to get something done, and it's going to take at least 5. So
and we get it done in 4. So
more or less. I mean, it's
somehow we managed to get it done. Usually still a little bit late, but not horribly late. It still works out.
Yeah, like pressure is definitely good. So I find that the more we take on within reason, the better everything goes.
Well, now that the job isn't done until the video is done. So there's a whole added part to it.
Yeah, I mean, which is like a whole thing. I've got like 6 sitting there, and I'm just like, Jack, you need to go do your, because I don't.
She nearly killed me. I went out and I pruned some trees, and I didn't bring the camera. Oh my god, she lost it.
It happened.
I'm like, are you almost done this project? Because
I'm like, I'm just trying to get stuff done. She's
the
like,
GoPro.
You should have put a camera out.
And then 3 hours later, speaking of getting involved in projects, I hear the chainsaw start up, and I'm like, that asshole doesn't have a camera. I'm like, what do you?
You're missing all the cool chainsaw stuff, slow-mo, sawdust flying.
I'm like,
exactly.
That was so cool. But the thing is, I mean, like, we don't do these things for the YouTube. Like, it's the other way around. Like, that's
they're gonna get done regardless. But
I'm getting really excited about like different shots and stuff, and I'm like super amateur.
Hickory Croft mentioning the fence and not finishing the gates. Fence is a hard one because the fence is only as good as the weakest spot, right? So like you did all that work and you still don't have a fence.
Yeah, fences are
leave a big old hole in it.
Fences are always ongoing.
I think what switched that for me with the not finishing projects and then switching to finishing them was so we were at our last place and we were there for 5 years, and I did God knows how many home renos, outside things, and I did 90% of these jobs. And then when we bought this place, we had not. Oh, see you, Remy. We had not considered that we had to sell the place we were in, and I'm talking like wallpaper up on half the wall, like things literally.
All
like I ran out of
projects.
paint, so I'm just like, let me just make a line, and then I'll just paint below that line, and it'll be fine. I mean,
behind the fish tank. Well, we're not gonna have to paint back there.
We're never gonna see it. We're gonna build in something. Well, it turns out when you sell the fish tank, you got a big hole where you don't have things,
bookcase, fridge, all that kind of stuff.
It was a mess. I mean, it was 7 days of literally not sleeping and just going balls to the wall. And I mean, like I sold out like
it's amazing how
4
good
home hardwares of this one wallpaper, because one day I was just like, let's put this up here, and then I had to like finish the job, and it was just, I mean, so now I'm kind of like,
I think the only time I've been like that, where projects got to be done is when the vet's coming or the farrier's coming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's always,
deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah. Or like if we're having people that are coming into the house, because like we don't have people over a lot, so it became this running joke with this one guy that we knew who'd come in like over like once a month, and I'd be like, man, we only clean the house when you're like, if you weren't coming over, then they just wouldn't have happened. Because the house stuff does get ignored often. I mean, we've been cleaning this corner because people see it.
I was joking earlier.
I think anyone on a farm, homestead, the house is second to.
Well, especially in the
else.
Spring.
Yeah.
There's too much stuff to do. The house stuff it's going to be there waiting for you. Yeah,
exactly.
You got to live amongst it. But
I made some big moves on the basement in the last like month and a half. But I was going stir crazy, and it was the only thing I could do. And we had the materials, so I was just like, let's do this.
I saw a YouTube video right before this that my daughter was watching, and it was a family vlog type one, and they had the mom was coming back from a trip, and the husband, being the good husband, said, "I want my wife to show up to a clean house," but he also mentioned that her flight got delayed 4 times, so he had a lot of extra hours there, and suddenly he's doing it in the middle of the night, so he wasn't going to do it. Yeah. But anyway, he's like, my wife does so much, and I want her to come home to a really clean house and, just make her feel loved. I'm like, oh, that's great. And so he goes and he does a little montage of him cleaning the house. And he's like, okay, the house is clean. And she gets home, and then she's talking about how nice it is and to be home. And she's got the camera. She's walking around, and you see, because she's talking to the camera, right out of the view of where he cleaned up on the other side of the couch is just toys and garbage all over the place. He just cleaned up for the camera, that little view.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, YouTube life, I think.
Honestly, it helps with that, because occasionally we have done stuff and I'm like, well, I'd really like to, if I'm going to spread out all the seeds and take a video of it, like I'd rather do it in the living room. And then I'm like, man, that dust bunny's been there for a while. I'm like,
I gotta clean up that corner of the house if I'm gonna.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's embarrassing. And I'm like, I'm embarrassing enough on film as it is. I don't need like additional things. But we have 6 dogs and 2 cats and a 5-year-old who is basically a feral free-range child, who is way too smart for her own good. It's super independent. So like, yeah, there will be things. There's always
I'm at the point now for videos where if there's dishes not done, if there's, dirt on the floor, if there's something like that, I don't care. And, you're going to see our place most of the time like it is. So, yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
The odd time when I make like the bread videos where I'm trying to do them in the kitchen, I do clean up, but otherwise I'm like, nah.
Yeah, we want to go around and like, there's so many, recipes and things that people have done on their channels. We want to go and start doing some of them and posting a video basically as a response to their recipes and us trying to make the stuff and find out if we're allowed to use any of their footage to splice in there of them doing stuff and us trying to do it. We were going to try do your toad in the hole also.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't
think I saw that one.
Well, I always call it toad in my hole. And Lindsay doesn't find that as funny as I do, but
hey there, Urban White Buffalo. Welcome. Glad you could join us.
Things are getting special. Jack has a very interesting sense of humor.
I think it's called dry.
I think
joke is more
it's
for me
for
than
him,
for anyone
it's not
else.
for anyone else. Yeah.
I think off camera things would go really bad for, a little drinking and joking and talking and
with your sausage thing you posted, I'm sitting like in a parking lot waiting for my daughter to finish dance, and I'm just like listing off all the inappropriate jokes I could make, and I'm just like, oh, I can't. I'm like, I'll leave it.
So for everyone watching and listening, when we did our pigs, we did our own sausages. And tonight I pulled a pack of those sausages out of the fridge. They've been thawing for a couple days in the fridge, and I pulled them out, making them for the boys. And I put them out in the pan, and I started cutting because we did the knots. So, we never cut anything. We did like 8 sausages with the knots. And then when we put it on the pan to throw it in the oven or on the barbecue, we cut the knots. Well, I pulled out this one, and I'm like, whoa, it's like 3 times the size of a normal sausage. And I'm like, so I posted that on Facebook, and I said, like, I don't remember drinking that much that I screwed up the sausage that bad, but I guess I did.
Yeah.
It was funny. I had that though when I was unpacking, and I got some of it in one of the videos, which was funny. But I was labeling things incorrectly or spelling things wrong, or like I spelled kitchen wrong on one of my boxes. It was for
Let me
teacups.
tell you about our pork schnitzel.
Oh.
Well, schnitzel's hard to write in the best of times, but
I think we made like 30 packs of schnitzel with our 2 pigs last year, maybe more. And not one pack of schnitzel was spelt the exact same way. Everyone was different. Like I tried every combination I could think of, and
you have all the letters were present.
All the letters were there, and even more.
Some extras.
Schnitzel.
Thankfully, Bridget knew exactly what it was. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how the things you think you're operating at a certain level sometimes, and then you get proof later that you weren't, and it's always a little bit jarring. You're like, oh,
the worst too, you guys have probably done it too, is, and I think everyone's probably done it. You write something on a box or on a package, or then you stare at it too long, and then it doesn't look right. Like you spelled it right, but you stare at it so long that suddenly it doesn't look right anymore.
Like,
no, that's just weird.
Yeah, I think alcohol plays a part also. All of a sudden words are starting to look a little weird.
What are words? Anyways? It's fun.
Yeah. And I know for coming up with priorities and homestead starting and stuff, that we're asking, us, because we're like in the thick of kind of deciding all this stuff. But I am curious, you haven't been on your property that long. How did you kind of decide what were your goals?
No. So when I moved from Ontario, I moved in with Bridget, and she was renting half the house from her sister. And so I moved in with her here, and, we wanted a garden. So, we kind of put it over on our side of the house. And then we were like, we kind of want chickens, and, got 3 chickens to have on our side of the house. And I've always wanted a big property. Like I said, my one goal was be able to walk out of the house and walk out any door and be able to pee without anyone seeing me. Yeah. And I've always wanted to be able to have basically my own food supply. So it was kind of the perfect setup. And Bridget's sister was thinking about, the property was way too big for her to manage by herself. So and she wanted to build her own place. So we were basically, okay, so we'll buy the property from you, and then that will give you, the money you need as well to build the house of your dreams that you want to build. So it was 2019. We finalized the offer right before the whole thing went boom, which was crazy, because we look at it now and we couldn't even come close to finding a place that is the same as this.
No. Even
in the same ballpark for money anywhere in Canada. Like we've looked on the East Coast, and it's like, we can't afford that now. The prices are just way too high. But we kind of started slow with what we had while we were here before we owned it. So our problem was, we did the garden over in the one corner, kind of out of the way. And then we did the chickens over in the other corner. And then when it was like, okay, we are buying the place, then we're like, okay, so the cows need to go over here because that's the space we have for them. So if we were to do it again and say, move on to a new property, then things would be so much different. We'd be like, okay, so we want all the animals in the same area. So if there is a barn, they can be in it. Or if there isn't a barn, we could at least build one and they'd still be in the same area. And then the greenhouse and the garden would be closer together. So it would actually, we don't have to walk 5 miles to take seedlings back and forth. And that kind of thing. So for us, it was kind of a slow start, and then we kind of just went nuts.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, there was good things with that, is because we knew the property, we knew the features of the land, so we could utilize what we knew to build the food forest that we're building, or, you know, where we wanted to put the cow fields and that kind of thing. So it was nice to have that time where we weren't actually building, we were just kind of, you know, walking the property.
Yeah, like living there. You didn't have to wait that year because you knew what, you know, put the water down.
Exactly. We knew the trails, we knew the landscape. So it was like, okay, the cow field is going to follow those trails because that's going to be perfect for setting up the fences.
Yeah.
So it was good that way.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember back. I think I saw in one of your videos about your food forest. Like you had a nice like plans drawn up.
Yeah. So
It was on paper or something.
We had we have a friend that has basically a nursery down the street from us.
Nice.
And we had her come out and actually say, you know, here's some stuff that you need to think about for this spot. Here's some other stuff for this spot. And then Bridget drew up the plan where we could kind of start marking off where we wanted the food forest, where we wanted the bees, where we wanted to plant more stuff. So it was very easy for us to look at it and then say, you know, here's kind of what we want to do, and here's where we continue to update it. So each year when we buy more trees for the food forest or we buy more stuff, we actually update the drawing as well. So
awesome.
That's something we want to do, because we also have to
Yeah.
go around. A lot of things have been planted here, and even just
We
the
don't know what they
wild
are.
stuff.
Yeah.
As I'm identifying what is, you know, around, I need to start writing it down. And you know, a picture makes the most sense in, you know, an actual drawing of the property. So
yeah, it's amazing to look at some of the old pictures of what was where it is and what's different now. It's like before we had a little compost over where the greenhouse is, and then where the cow fields are, there was nothing but trees. It was just all trees. So it's really good, I think, for anyone too starting a homestead or doing a homestead, to be able to document that and be able to look back on what you have accomplished, just for your own peace of mind, is that, you know, you are getting ahead, you are getting somewhere.
well, and YouTube's nice for that also. You got
It is great for
documentation.
That. Yeah. If you actually take your camera out with you when you're doing those projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did very well today. He did very well today.
I redeemed myself. I nearly crashed the drone.
Yeah, he did actually. Nearly took.
She's like, why don't you ever get the cool shots where it's like sweeping like 1 foot above the barn and stuff? I'm like, because it's expensive. Like, I'm going to stay way the hell up there, and I'm going to, you know, still own the thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit braver today, and I got some cool shots and things. But then at the end,
ruined everything. It's fine.
the last shot of the day, I mean, it was part of the decision to end with the drone. But I went up and did this big sweeping shot, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at the screen, and you can just see the power lines like right beside it.
Yeah.
And I think I cleared it by a couple inches.
Right
over the power lines.
Yeah, it was that was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing in the comments here about the boom that happened, the doom and the boom.
For real estate?
Yeah, and we were in a very like niche situation where it was after everything kind of went crazy that we were able to capitalize on what had happened and come out here. Because we were within a commutable distance to Toronto. Apparently, I used to do
it's
that
pretty far,
drive. One time it took me 4 hours to get to work. I could see work and I couldn't.
Depends on traffic. Commutable.
It was terrible. Like I was spending
zero traffic.
A lot of time. Like it was awful. It was awful. On a good day, I could do it in 2 hours. I mean, like one way, it was terrible. But anyways, being that close to Toronto, our prices went like the one day we had a little corner store near us, and it was about a 10-minute drive. And I drove down and I watched a realtor walk out and put a for sale sign on someone's yard. Okay. And then I went down, talked to the shop owner. It was amazing. Like really, really cool people. And I got a pizza and I was driving back and I watched that same realtor walk out and take the sign and then put the sold one. Like, it was that fast. It was absolutely absurd. So then
we sold
started
our
looking
place
a
the
little
day we
bit.
put it up.
Yeah, we were done in 19 hours.
Yeah, I had a
and it was
coworker that
crazy.
called me and he's like, "Hey dude, like I'm looking down the street. You've got a place that's like a few doors down. What do you think of it?" I got in the truck and I went down and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's that one. Yeah, it's sold."
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gone.
It was like
Yeah.
same day.
And
It was
that's the
crazy.
thing, is it's hard to also gauge, like, what is even a property worth now? You can't even know. It just
no idea.
happens, right? You get into bidding wars. Everyone wants your
and
place all of a
we've been
sudden.
looking, like, we were on our place that was 8 acres, but we've been looking because we knew we wanted more, and we wanted and it wasn't about the house. It was never about the house. It was always land, and we wanted something different. And I mean, ideally, the weather wasn't great where we were either. And Jack, actually, the last pickup we had, he rolled it down a hill with Kenzie in the back because of the weather in this one spot, and that was on a good day. So that was kind of a scary thing that we wanted to not be too close to. But it's why we drive trucks, right? It's not gonna wood, nothing like that happens again. But it would, like, we've been looking for years and years and years, and we were starting to look more than 8 hours away from everything we knew. And at that point, we were like, well, what's the difference?
Well, we were looking up north of Huntsville when the prices would get more reasonable.
Yeah.
But at that point, people aren't popping by to see us anyways.
Yeah.
It's going to be a once a year, maybe twice a year type thing for family or friends to visit anyways. Yeah. So we wanted to look, and now we're, closer to a Costco right now from our, awesome rural property than we were to our grocery store at our last place. Just, we have a lot more amenities and more freedom and space. So it kind of all works out.
Yeah.
But you look at the prices and like, of course it is,
they're going up.
They're inflated.
Yeah.
But also
when
if you
bought,
already
they weren't quite.
If you have a house already, and that's the thing, is it's almost impossible to get into it, right? If you don't have a place, like, now is not the time. And maybe there won't be a time. I don't have no idea. But if you have a place, your property's inflated too. So you just, you sell that one, you move to this one, and hopefully you come out on top of the, the exchange. But
I mean, we were one.
It's funny. We have realtors phoning us like once a week.
Yeah, you want to sell your place?
Like, no, I don't.
Yeah. It's like, no, go away.
I don't want to move. Like, I have not found a piece of property, one, that I can afford now, and two, that is kind of would give me more features than I have now. I like, for me, I need something that's like an old flour mill with the water wheel and the stream. So then I could power something and also do some work like that, and then have enough land that I could have all my animals, and there's like an established food forest.
Right.
Yeah. If anyone sees something like that, let me know.
I think I saw that in a painting somewhere.
Yeah. We'll let you know for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the other side to all that is that, like, the things that we had done and the debt we had taken on to attempt to homestead on 8 acres in such a way that was never going to pay the bills, or any bills at all, not even the feed bill. We were one turn of the interest rate away from losing everything. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat, whether they know it or not. And that was part of the homesteading and the impending doom and the stuff that we'd been like for 8 years. We're like, something's going to happen in our lifetime, either personally or globally or nationally or whatever. And it's going to be a very bad time. And we want to be prepared for such a thing. And we've had many, like, being self-employed, we've had many moments like that where we're like, so we're broke and we're not going to have any more money until we do more work or get another client or whatever. So that helps us all the time, because we can flip flop into, spend save mode pretty fast. We don't spend very long in save mode, which is probably part of the problem. But we took that opportunity and we were like, can we offload as much debt as possible? Can we get out of that? Can we? And as it is, we offloaded a bit, not a ton when we moved here. But if this place had fallen through, we were going the absolutely zero debt route. Like, we were like, if it's going to be a shitty little cabin in the woods before we get a yurt or something, I'm like, that's what we're going to do. Because you got to stop being dependent on stuff. And I mean, like, because we have to be dependent on so many things as it is. And we'll always need the community and we'll always need those things. But, like, do you also need to be, like, up to your eyeballs and, issues with a bank. I mean, just trying to get rid of all that and simplify everything. And
I always like that one saying, if you owe the bank like $1 million, it's your problem. If you owe the bank $100 million, it's their problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I don't know, it's been a really crazy couple of years. And I think in some ways it's been good because it's made a lot of people realize that there's a lot of systems out here that are hanging on by a thread, and they always have been. And there's some issues. And I know a lot of people personally who were never believed me when I talked about, things that could go wrong, or what if this happened, or what if that happened, and everything would kind of go up, and they'd be like, well, I'd still have power, or I'd still have water. And I'd be like, okay, have fun.
Yeah.
Where I live, if I get too much snow, I don't have any of those things. Like,
exactly, eh?
You know what I mean? It's so I think that's been good for a lot of people in general. It's just kind of that awakening to be like, wow, maybe I should think about this a little
Well,
bit.
and then, it's always the question is how far do you have to go to really consider yourself like self-reliant? I don't think any of us are unless we're forced to be, because why would you ever go to that extreme and you're eating guppy powder for nutritional value, as we were there talking about last night. You're not going to do it if you have other options, right? So
right. Well, that's the thing is like I did that one video and I forget the name of it, but it was like, it's great to learn the survival aspects, but for me, I want to enjoy all the finer things in life until I have to actually survive. So, I want my hot tub. I want my pool. I want all that stuff. I don't want to go live out in the bush eating, stuff. Like,
why start the apocalypse early?
Yeah, we don't have to.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It's great to know those things, but I don't want to start it early.
Yeah.
That's something that I talk about anytime someone's like, if someone comes to me and they're like legitimately interested about homesteading or prepping, I normally it's always kind of a funny moment for me. I'm like, oh, you're about to get a whole bunch of information. But something I always include, and this is directly from Spearco, like I've got this like burned into my brain, is that it's okay to purposely plan in things that you enjoy just for the purpose that you enjoy them. Like, it's okay to do that. Like, if you are a prolific painter,
there's no
the
point
end of the world
being
is coming,
here if we're not enjoying something.
Stock up on paints, man. Like, that's allowed. Like, I mean, like, we've got a 5-year-old. Like, you want to bet we've got boxes of friggin', what is it? The Cinnamon Toast Crunch or whatever the favorite cereal is. If I'm battling the apocalypse, do I want to be battling a 5-year-old and their favorite cereal?
Eat your guppy powder.
No. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay to it's okay if we got in a situation where we'd be like, well, you better eat the eggs because that's all that there is to eat, period, the end.
Right.
But if we're not there, then,
However,
I don't need to.
I could eat eggs every day.
Oh, yeah. No, and we do practically.
I'm like an omelet every morning for breakfast.
Yeah. It's good. But I mean, like, we are allowed to enjoy ourselves too, because
exactly,
life is really freaking short. And I mean,
yeah.
Let's enjoy it. This is coming from like the person, like the most anxious, like unhappy person ever in the world. I'm always like, literally, I've been like having a really good time the last like month or so. And I keep telling Jack, I'm just like, it's too good. It's too good. Something's going to happen. It's going to be really bad. And he's like, what is wrong with you? Like, just enjoy the moment.
You can't think like that because then something will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, like, and that's, I don't know, kind of part of the priorities, right? Like, I'll go into panic mode and be like, we need a dairy animal now. And Jack's like, maybe we should worry about like the garden or the website or like
we'll just trade
the laundry.
We'll barter. We'll trade guppy powder for a dairy goat or something when that time comes. If you have a lot, if you're doing something well, you can still set yourself up. Before everyone eats all their goats because they're hungry that winter.
Yeah. But we definitely started this journey with the, like, oh my God, let's go hide in a bunker, and have kind of ended up now where we're like, how do we influence all of our neighbors to also be self-sufficient? I mean, like, that's
and I think that's the key is, getting together with your neighbors to be in the same mindset. So you are a community, you are working together. You have like our neighbors, we know on both sides they do over here, they do indoor gardening. Like they've got tomatoes that are, they already have tomatoes. And we're like, oh. They got peppers. And then talking to the other ones, like, yeah, I've got the rototiller for the tractor, and we're going to be putting in lots of gardens. And it's like, you want to make sure everyone's in the same mindset, and you can count on each other if need be.
Yeah. Because the thing is, if everyone's starving and you're the one person with a farm and with food, I mean, do you have more value because of what you have, or do you have more value because of what's in your brain and the skills that you have? And if people can recognize that, then I
definitely
feel like
the food, because nothing's in my brain.
Yeah. Oh God. But that's kind of like where we end up on it, right? Like we kind of hope that people would come at a theoretical situation like that more like, teach a man to fish versus, just murder him and take his fish, or his guppies or his squash, or, whatever. So that's kind of,
we're farther from Toronto now. There's not going to be the hordes of hungry people. So I think we're a little bit better off.
And it's funny.
Well, you got Quebec City coming for you.
I'm like, everyone always talks about, I need your, I gotta kind of like do a little rant here, but I was watching one video and the guy's like, you need your bug out bag at the door right now because they're testing nuclear missiles and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, so your other videos where you had $30,000 of dried food in your basement.
Yeah, you're going to leave, go to a mud pit somewhere.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Like, where are you going
now?
Where are you going?
I'm like,
well, yeah.
Okay.
The get home bag seems to make a lot more sense. Like in your truck.
Yeah.
And you can't get your truck home because there's, everyone's gotten out of their vehicles or something. You can't get on the road, and you got to try to camp and walk your way back home. I mean, that makes sense.
There goes my YouTube career now. I'm starting to call out other YouTubers. Oh man.
Oh God. Yeah, no, it's and I worry about that too, because we do kind of for people who are very much like don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like as homesteaders, we kind of put them all in the homestead basket, which is kind of an issue. And I'd love to have one of those stealth trailers and like have it.
Why am I going to put my eggs in multiple baskets? And I just have more baskets to carry. It's like, have you ever tried to carry all your eggs from the chicken coop in multiple baskets? It doesn't.
I just bring the coat that has more pockets. I have never been prepared enough to bring a basket and just put them in pockets, and they're
just don't bend over to pick something up.
I bent down and crushed them on my leg, and just horrible.
It happens.
All my eggs in one pocket.
Yeah.
In
one pocket.
But to me, I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where there's the multiple zombie hordes and that kind of stuff. I just don't see it. I think stuff has to go really, 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 really bad for that to happen.
I think the forces at play here don't want that. So if we trust that they have a lot of sway, they'll stop that from happening. Or at least long term. They, like for all you know, they'll do short term. They'll say, "I got a solution for you," but.
Exactly. You take a look at Venezuela, Lebanon, where stuff has gone really, really, really bad, and there still isn't the zombie hordes. So
yeah. Well, and I think that's probably what's going to end up being is some kind of depression level event, which
exactly, yeah.
For today's people, I think would be a lot harder because if you look at the people who were going through the depression when that happened, there had been a lot of shit right before that. There was a lot going on.
Will we get into a spot, like you said, where we might have to barter and trade with each other and stuff's not going to be on the shelves? Sure, I can see that happening, but I don't foresee the Mad Max scenario.
And we're going to have the internet, because if we didn't, then we'd be in that chaos situation pretty quickly. Everything relies on it. So it's going to be weird. Everyone's going to be in the depression, but they're going to be doing selfies and look how thin I look.
Well, it's like that. What is it? That Target contest, the farm dress.
I saw
everyone
that.
taking selfies with their Target dress from the Depression era stuff.
Yeah. That was funny. Man,
that
made me laugh.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's the harder thing is because everyone with their homestead stuff and, bringing it back to priorities and stuff, everyone, it's some level of wanting to rely on outward stuff. You want to rely on it less. And then to what degree you take that, that's perhaps an individual decision. But if the goal is, if the world kind of goes to complete crap or close to, a reasonable version of that, you want to be okay. You can keep doing what you're doing and you're not going to starve. You can keep, the animals that you have going in some fashion. And that's where, conversation goes for Hickory Croft a lot. I know, because that's like, it always ends up like, how do I keep this going though?
Yeah.
Right. You're like, okay, I've got this thing, but then what?
Yeah.
And
our
that's
priorities
just it.
changed.
If we get into that self-sufficiency thing, it's like, well, how actual self-sufficient are you without those inputs?
Well, everyone with their egg laying flock, and especially because it's like 6 years old, right? They got their backyard flock. They're all named. They're not killing them. Yeah. 6 years old. They're not laying like they used to. And they're like, well, I'm going to be good because I have eggs. Yeah. Like, well, I hope you have a grain field too. Yeah. And a lot more chickens than that. Yeah,
and we're on the grain again. But yeah, our priorities change. I mean, like when we were really getting into all this, like we were going to have the cow and the goats and the sheep and the this and the that and all the like picturesque, like Babe the movie, like that's what we were going for. And then the worse things got, and the more we researched, the more we were like, okay, we got to close all these systems. We got to close as many systems as possible. Because then it's less things that you have to then deal with. And like, man, when everyone was doing the whole toilet paper thing, I mean, okay, we didn't have any because that was like the one thing that was on the list, but I was waiting.
We just started doing Amazon, subscription buying some of that stuff.
Yeah, so like 50% more than we needed so that we could like passively bulk up without really thinking about it.
Then it wasn't available.
And then Amazon just went all crazy and everyone had it and no one had anything. And we were good for everything else, but that was an awakening even for us that I'm like, literally any of these things could do exactly that. And we've seen it with a whole ton of different things. It's just like, okay, how do we
we've
close
seen it
these
with
off?
like peanut butter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they started talking about having not letting people have too much of one thing in their house.
And it's like, it's crazy because like we're just gone into the grocery store lately, and they're like 3 unit limit, 3 purchase limit, 3. You can only buy 3 things of butter.
You got to walk out and come back in.
We're in the dairy capital of Canada. How is there a limit on butter?
Yeah.
But how dare you find a new way to source it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, can't do that. Like it's outrageous, and I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it's really kind of stupid.
But people mad about the people buying the toilet paper and like, well, if they didn't buy it, then it would still be available. There'd be enough. I'm like, yeah, but they knew it was happening, and they didn't want to be the one wiping their butt with their hand, so they bought some toilet paper.
I'm in northern Canada. We got a pine forest. I got tons of pine cones.
Yeah, you're all set.
Yeah, but it's I feel bad.
Exfoliate while you're doing it.
Like all these people who've been like violently red pilled, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Yeah." Because they're like, just like, "Oh my god!" Like, did you know that the government, like, in the bylaw, like, they'll stop you from doing like anything? And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, that's why we kept on moving and kept on bitching and kept on like.
We talked about that a bit.
I'm like, yeah, it's a problem.
Well, people who don't see a major issue, and it's because they just like fall into the category of the government's not really in their way. They're not stopping them from doing the things that they do. They go to the college on the weekend.
You haven't tried to do something that the government won't let you do.
Yeah.
Literally everything.
It's when you start doing weird stuff like that. You should just on principle be able to do as a free human. As long as I'm not wrecking anyone else's day by doing it, it should be fine in a direct way, because then it gets philosophical. Oh, you're messing with your neighbors indirectly. I'm like, I don't buy that.
As long as you don't harm another innocent person.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. It's been an interesting time, and it's but it was funny when it was all happening, because like we've been like planning and preparing for a thing, and didn't know it was going to be this thing. But when everything started going down, it's just like we're kind of looking at each other and we're like, we're not ready. Like, how dare this happened now because we are not prepared, and I'm pissed about it.
Well, because
Like-
we knew better, but
we did. I mean, like that was the most frustrating part. Like you can know all these concepts for so long, and then the thing happens, and you're like, I don't have any freaking toilet paper. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? So that was embarrassing. Because we had people be like, well, you're a prepper, so you're all stocked up, and I'd be like,
Yeah. Well, we
Of course we
The
are.
Romans used to use a wet rag on a stick.
Yes. Yeah.
well,
They also
they had
used to
someone who
use
held
arsenic.
the stick. That was someone's job.
Yeah. No, that was a slave position, I think.
That's a job.
Yeah. But they also used arsenic as sweetener or salt.
Oh,
I forget which one. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Not ideal.
Yeah, well,
There's some
Yeah.
issues.
Seasoning.
There's some issues there.
Yeah.
oh,
I took a lot of like Latin and Roman and Greek history and stuff in school.
nice.
It was interesting.
All right, guys. Well, it's past my bedtime.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. We're last night was late. The night before that was late. We keep getting sucked
Yeah.
into lives, and we're like,
Awesome. Well, appreciate everyone in the chat for coming out and hanging out with us. And thank you, Jack and Lindsay, so much for joining me tonight.
That was great.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting
Answering
us.
some questions and going over stuff. I think we have to have another one just talking about doom and regulations and that kind of stuff. We'll
Yeah.
get Chris on and do a deep dive into that kind of stuff. And yeah.
Logistical doom conversation.
Yeah, we're gonna
Exactly.
let's get all of our channels flagged at the same time. Just get it
So
done.
right now.
Yeah, exactly. Who wants to volunteer to host that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll definitely be talking to you soon. Again, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys for
Thank
everything.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.